Alrighty, Carl. So, do you actually remember the first record you ever owned?
The first record I actually physically went into a record store and I paid for it with my paper round money was Diana Ross Love Hangover, which came out in 1976. So that was like 82 pence. That's the first record I actually physically went out and actually owned.
Wow. I'm curious too. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word vinyl?
The first thing that comes to mind is the fact that you own something. You basically purchased it and it's yours. So you kind of put that away. You treasure that in the end of the day. You kind of no one can take that away from you. When I was going to buy records and in a place called Croydon in England, my friends would go to the same place in Croydon, but to go and get themselves a McDonald's hamburger because that's what they really wanted. So they would eat a hamburger and it would be finished. And I go and buy a record and I still got it. And I've still got that record today, but the hamburger's finished. So for me, it kind of just showed me the importance of what I was doing even then about how I felt about obtaining such something which I treasured basically.
And you obviously started DJing at a very young age with turntables. Do you remember the moment you decided that you wanted to be a DJ as a career?
When I was about 15 years old, I felt that I needed to have equipment that I could at least perform something with. When I was DJing with my father's equipment, it was just one turntable which would fit on 45-inch singles, which you basically stacked into the mono uh, turntable player. And then you put the records in how you wanted, and then those records would play individually, and then you would restack them. Now that was pretty cool. Apart from when you went to go and restack them, you didn't hear any music, so everyone was talking until the music come back again. What I did was I recorded a lot of the records that I liked to play onto a cassette player, and then plugged that cassette player into the turntable, where you had a phono auxiliary, and between those two elements, I can basically switch between phono and then play the music from tape to keep the music going, and then go back from tape back to the records. So instantly, without even thinking about it, I was already mixing music from a non-stop point of view. So that happened between when I was about 10 up to around about 15 years old. And then I had two tape recorders, so I could basically play off two tape recorders and keep music going. And then eventually two turntables and a mixer, so I can continuously play music from that point.
And now I understand you have quite a record collection. What can you tell me about it?
Well, my record collection basically starts from 1968, where a lot of my early collection was from inherited from my father. So he obviously doesn't play vinyl anymore, and he hadn't done for many years. So I obtained that vinyl and basically started my collection. And through, I would say, the 70s, 74, 75, when I started buying my own music, um, I basically had little boxes like this with 45-inch singles in them. And then that box would fill up, and then I'd get more singles, and that box would fill up, and then I had these crates from Sweps. Sweps, they're little cans of mixers, little bottles of mixers. Well, those crates were perfect to put 45-inch records in. And then I would have boxes of 45-inch singles through Sweps craters. But all the while, I was collecting the LPs and then eventually collecting 12-inch singles. And then they obviously took up a lot more room. But I was just any given moment to buy new music, I would pick up. I'd go every weekend, save my money, go to the record store and go and buy vinyl. And then eventually the collection started to happen. I I have a collection from '68 all the way through, I think, until about 2006, where obviously vinyl started tailing off, and then the CD players and downloaded music and all of that started to come into play. So in the collection, roughly, in the sense of the count of how many I've got, and the music that I bought from then until present day, it's probably around about over 150,000 pieces. If you know the size of a triple garage or double garage, it takes up one side of a triple garage of vinyl. So, and it's all racked up so you can walk through them, based on my life history of collecting music.
Wow. And I understand too that they're ordered obviously chronologically in order. Is it hard? Was it hard to transport all that to keep it in its order?
It really was. I mean, the way how they all got packed was in year order. So I thought at the end of the day, if I wanted anything from 1976, 77, I just grab all the records from that era, find the ones that I liked or they're all my favourites, and then put the rest of the records back and then use those records if I needed to. Put them all into alphabetical order or something like that. It's pretty cool to do it, but the years would have got mixed up in that order. And I didn't really want to go that far. I just wanted to just go in there, grab records if I needed them from the time of year. And for me, that made more sense to me because then I probably would have grabbed records that I'd forgotten about in that kind of process, and then got inspired by whatever I've listened to or whatever I'm inspired by.
What are some of the memories you have when you look through your collection?
Most of the memories I have when I look from my collection is purely based on where I was at the time, how I was feeling at the time. What reason did I buy that album? You know, or why am I following these artists? Or you know, Diana Ross and the Supremes. You know, now it's the Supremes. Because Diana Ross is left. What's she making now on her own? That kind of thing. Following music all the time. These things go on and on and on when you're collecting music, and it just intrigued me. You know, at the end of the day, when you had session musicians, and the sound of that session musician would basically work on someone else's album, and then transport that sound on someone else's album and make that better, or sometimes worse. But that discovery was always something that I was always looking for when I was basically going through the ideals of discovering the music that was coming out, and it was always still today. I'm still searching for that.
Do you have any particular records that are really important to you in your collection that really hit home with you?
I reckon there's only one particular album that I think defines my whole life existence of music, and the amount of years that this artist has spanned, and he's still alive today. Thank God for, you know, because maybe one day he'll go as well, based on what's been going on over the last year. Is Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder has been going for many years, even when he was a child star, in his own right, when he started to be someone that was able to perform his music, write the music, play the music, and he was blind. You know, I mean, Jesus. He's doing all of this, and it never stopped him being the person that he is today. And at the time, he was seen as little Stevie Wonder when he started playing on the harmonica and making his music and then playing the piano. But there's an album called Songs in the Key of Life, which came out in 1986, and on Tamla Motown Records, and it was probably one of the first albums that came out on triple pack. So he was able to put more than I think it was like 15 or 16 songs on there, but like full length songs. There wasn't just like 3.5 minutes single songs. He wanted to basically create this album of which he played the drums, he arranged everything, he played the bass lines, he played all the harmonica, of course, singing. He's all over it. You know, it's just an amazing talent that he has, and every single song on there, it make you laugh, it make you cry, you can sing along to the songs. You get taken away by his journey of what he believes is something that he really wanted to create. And he's actually going to be doing a tour in the UK. I think it's roughly around about the 10th of July in Hyde Park. He's actually going to recreate his album and play it all live. So I'm gonna go to that, if you can imagine, and he's gonna do the whole album, which is just genius. In the end of the day, that's something that came out so long ago and still today is still relevant based on his musicianship.
How often do you get the chance to sit down and listen to your records? Is it a thing you do quite often, or you don't really have a lot of time for, or you make time for?
No, I really, I mean, as you can imagine, I've been through my record collection millions of times, played that record millions of times. I do, however, um, get an opportunity to play some of those records where I actually have an event called Mobile Disco. And with my friend Eric Powell, who lives in Melbourne now, used to live in Manchester, used to run a record label called Bush Records. Between us, we just decided to do something just for the hell of it and to utilize all the records that we have sitting in the garage and to bring those records out and to play those records, share them like we've always done anyway when you're sharing music. Um, so we're diving in the record collection to see what we can basically play. And a lot of the records that we have are not on the internet. You can't download them. So we have to basically get those records, digitize them, so we can basically play them off our computer. We found when we were playing the vinyl, when we did our first 2 or 3 parties in Dramana, in on the Mornington Peninsula, open air event, on the veranda when it's like 32 degrees, the records just bend and warp, turn into Mexican hats in front of our very eyes. So we don't play the vinyl. It's just not possible to continue that. But what we can do is digitize the ones we really like, and then basically play them from the CDs or play them from the computer. So they never skip, they never jump. They'll just play. You still get the crackles and the kind of skips and stuff that when you're playing vinyl, you get that characteristics of that sound. But of course, it preserves the vinyl in such a way that we still save it from its demise if it comes to heat anyway when we're playing them. So we get an opportunity to go through those record collection, and every year, it just again I rediscover a lot of music when I go back into playing them. So I do mobile disco in Melbourne in Australia. I do a kind of mobile disco in Miami, and we do a disco party on a Sunday, which is after the Winter Music Conference that happens there. And now and again, I'll either do a party at home in England, or I get asked to play funk and soul and disco and jazz and that kind of music, sometimes worldwide. And it's kind of amazing for me to play records which came out over 30 years ago, and there's like 10,000 people still dancing to this music, or 5 or 2,000. But it's just great that the interest is still there for music that I've always loved.
Is it hard to digitize a record? Is it a complicated process? Is it?
No, they've actually bought out Stanton have bought out a record player, which has a USB input or output, so you can basically put it through a recording program. So when you play the record, it just basically digitizes it into a 2-track program, and then you can edit that program, or you can actually remix it if you really want to, into Ableton Live and create and you can almost bring the record back to life, because if it was a low pressing or the production wasn't so good, you can actually reproduce that record into something fantastic to get up to the levels of where the tracks are produced today. So the only thing is, it's a process. If it's a 7.5 minute record, you have to wait 7.5 minutes to digitize it. It doesn't do it double time or triple time. If it does, you'll lose the reproduction of the quality of the record. So everything's done in real time. So it's quite laborious.
And do you think playing records on a turntable is a unique listening experience, especially in sort of a world now where all music is streamed and sort of downloaded?
No, not really. I think if you close your eyes and you listen to music, it's the same. What you do get from the when you put a needle on the record is that slight kind of scraping sound of vinyl that you always hear. When you see the movies and the first thing you see is a needle go on the record, you hear that at the beginning, the crackles, and then the record plays. Of course, you don't get that with a download track, but that's a kind of the element of what makes vinyl so appealing still, because you have that quirkiness about that moment. The smell of vinyl when you open up the record for the first time, when you actually handle and touch it, you put it on the turntable, and the whole motion is just amazing. If you want to kind of in some ways you want to smooth a girl over, you bring it back to your place and you think, okay, I've got the perfect record, and you get the needle and you go, oh, you're gonna like this bit of Barry White, you go, oh, yeah, track 2, you find that track, boom, you put it on. Well, now you've got an iPod, you just go, oh yeah, track 2, whatever, you know what I mean? I'm gonna get it on anyway regardless, but it's not the same, when you have that kind of, and the thing when the record when it runs out, you have to go and get up and change it. Where you can have it on, iTunes. You can have it on a continuous play, so you don't have to get up.
Um, has the way you find your music for your sets changed from your vinyl days to now?
Um, it has changed a lot. I mean, the thing is, you still have the element of searching for music while you're playing. But what you do have when you're playing the music from the computer or from a DJ mix program, I use a program called Tractor. If the record's running out, you can put it on 16 to 32 bar loop, hit it, and then still search for something really quickly and then find it. When you're playing vinyl, that record's running out. You don't have the ability to do that. So if you have the record that you've had your intro on, that you had the track that's going into a breakdown, and then you've got your breakdown after into an outro, you better get your record ready for that outro, because if you don't, you're going to miss the mix. So with vinyl, you're thinking maybe 2 or 3 tracks before you've even thought about what you're going to play next. And then when you got 3 or 4 tracks kind of milling around, you choose the one and then you play it. So I'm always playing kind of like with 3 or 4 tracks in mind, so I never ever miss that mix. And I've never really, I've only once or twice where I've missed the mix and kind of miscalculated where the track's going to run off, and guys, just grab anything and just put it in and then play that and hope that works, sort of thing.
Do you miss your days of DJing with vinyl, or was it a lot harder? And
No, I do miss my days of playing vinyl, because it basically, for DJs, it kind of weeded out who was really good at it and who was really bad at it. And the thing is about it, I mean, everyone can be a DJ now in some ways, because they can just get this music program, select a bunch of records you like, put them together seamlessly on Tractor, and voila, you're in. With vinyl, if you couldn't mix the music on vinyl, you couldn't mix. If you could mix, that meant you had a certain amount of talent based on your performance as a DJ. And this has always been a bone of contention. Most people don't have a problem with people who can choose to select really good music, because I think we all have the ability to do that. But to actually mix that set onto vinyl, 99.5% of the DJs can't do that. And that's a shame, really, because that's the kind of talent that gets you where you are today, in the sense of your popularity. So it's quite a different era now. Most people don't really care too much about that anymore. As long as you're playing the music, it's good. But still, if you want to learn about it, understand it a little bit more, to see a DJ actually do that, you're seeing someone that's talented, someone that has the ability to do almost the impossible in some ways, of mixing music which doesn't have the ability of a sync button. You don't have the ability to cue anything. You don't have the ability to loop anything. Everything is done completely real time. And then you've got your added kind of like disasters of fluff on the needle, some drunk turning up and pushing the records decks, and then your needle goes everywhere. All these kind of elements of things. You're kind of riding by the seat of your pants when you're playing with vinyl. But that was the appeal of it all, and if you can get through all of that, and then by the end of the night you go, phew, okay, that's what I'm talking about. But when you don't have any of those scary moments with Tractor, or anything that happens with Tractor, or any of those DJ programs, is that if your computer crashes, you have to reboot and start again. But then people, if they wait for you to reboot, you do get the boos and vinyl, you never happened with vinyl and all of this sort of stuff. And you're like, yeah, I get it, I know. Music comes back on again, and then you carry on and go, okay, you're saved, sort of thing,